Your consciousness might be the greatest lie ever told, not by someone else, but by your own brain. Right now, as you watch this video, you believe you're experiencing a rich, vivid, continuous stream of awareness, colors, sounds, thoughts, emotions, all happening in real time inside your head. But what if I told you that none of that is actually happening? What if consciousness, the very thing you're most certain exists, is nothing more than an elaborate illusion created by unconscious processes you'll never directly experience? I'm Leonard Susskind, and after 50 years of working with quantum mechanics, studying the deepest structures of reality, I've come to a disturbing conclusion. The consciousness you think you have, the inner experience you're absolutely certain is real, might be the most sophisticated magic trick in the universe. And the magician is your own unconscious brain. Here's what should terrify you. Every single thing you believe about your own mind, every assumption about what it means to be conscious, could be completely wrong. And if consciousness isn't real, then what are you? Let me start with something that will shake your confidence in your own experience. Right now, you think you're seeing this entire video frame clearly. Every corner, every detail, all in perfect focus. But you're not. You're only seeing clearly in a tiny spot about the size of your thumbnail held at arm's length. Everything else, your entire peripheral vision, is a blur, is filling in the details, creating the illusion that you're seeing everything clearly when you're actually nearly blind to most of your visual field. Don't believe me? Try this. Without moving your eyes from the center of the screen, try to read any text at the edge of your vision. You can't. But somehow your brain convinced you that you could see it clearly just a moment ago. This isn't a minor glitch. This is your brain lying to you about the most basic aspect of your conscious experience. If it's lying about something this fundamental, what else is it lying about? The answer, according to modern neuroscience, is everything. Consciousness as you experience, it is not what's actually happening in your brain. It's a story your brain tells itself about what's happening, and like all stories, it leaves out most of the details and gets many of the facts wrong. Consider this unsettling fact. Processes about 11 million bits of information every second through your senses. But your conscious mind is aware of only about 40 bits per second. 40 out of 11 million. That means 99.999% of what your brain is doing never reaches consciousness. You're conscious of less than 1,000th of 1% of your brain's activity. The vast majority of your mental life is completely unconscious, and you'll never have any direct access to it. So what exactly is consciousness then? If it's not the rich, detailed experience you think you're having, what is it? The answer might disturb you. Consciousness might be nothing more than a very limited report that your unconscious brain generates about someone's activities. Think of it like a news broadcast. The news isn't the events themselves, it's a highly edited, simplified summary of what happened, usually delivered long after the actual events occurred. Your conscious experience is the same thing. It's not your brain experiencing the world directly. It's your brain's unconscious processes creating a simplified, edited report about what they think happened, and then broadcasting that report to a very small part of your brain that you identify as your conscious self. But here's the crucial point: the report isn't the reality. The map is not the territory. This becomes even more disturbing when you realize that there's no single place in your brain where consciousness happens. Neuroscientists have been looking for the neural correlates of consciousness for decades, scanning brains, stimulating neurons, trying to find where in the brain conscious experience is generated. And what they found is profoundly unsettling. There's no consciousness center. No place where all the information comes together to create your unified experience of being you. Instead, what they find is something more like a collection of unconscious processes, each handling different aspects of information processing, with no central observer watching it all happen. It's more like a committee of unconscious specialists, each doing their own job, with no chairman, no CEO, no single entity in charge. The sense that there's a unified you experiencing everything is itself an illusion created by these unconscious processes. But this raises a terrifying question. If there's no central observer, consciousness watching the show, then who or what is having your experiences? The answer that's emerging from neuroscience is deeply unsettling. Nobody, nothing. The experiences are happening, but there's no experiencer. There's no little person inside your head watching the movie of your life. The movie is playing, but the theater is empty. This isn't just philosophical speculation. Consider what happens when your brain is damaged. People with certain types of brain damage lose chunks of their conscious experience, but they don't notice what's missing. A person with visual neglect after a stroke literally cannot see the left side of their visual field, but they're not aware that they can't see it. They don't experience a black void on the left. They don't miss what's not there. The part of their brain that would generate the report about the left side of space is damaged, so no report gets generated, and without the report, there's no conscious experience of the missing information. But there's also no conscious experience of the absence of the information. This suggests that consciousness is not a spotlight illuminating the contents of your mind. It's more like a collection of reports being generated by unconscious processes. When the process that generates a particular report is damaged, the report stops being generated, and that aspect of consciousness simply vanishes. But since consciousness is nothing more than the collection of reports, you don't notice that one is missing. The absence of a report cannot itself be reported. This leads to an even more disturbing realization. You can't trust your own introspection. The very act of introspecting, of trying to observe your own consciousness, is itself an unconscious process generating reports about other unconscious processes. You never have direct access to consciousness itself, only to reports about reports about reports. It's like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. The tool you're using to observe is the very thing you're trying to observe. But this raises the deepest question of all. If consciousness is just a collection of unconscious processes generating reports about other unconscious processes, then what makes you think you're conscious at all? Why do you have the overwhelming sense that there's something it's like to be you, that you have subjective experiences, that you're not just a biological robot processing information? The answer might be that this sense of being conscious is itself just another report generated by unconscious processes, has evolved a process that generates reports about its own reporting processes. It creates a meta-narrative, a story about the story it's telling itself. And this meta-narrative includes the assertion that there's someone there to experience it. But the assertion isn't evidence that there actually is someone there. It's just another unconscious process generating another report. Think about this carefully. Right now, you have the strong intuition that you're conscious, that you're experiencing this video, that there's something it's like to be you. But that intuition, that sense of being conscious, is itself just information being processed by your unconscious brain. The feeling of being conscious is not evidence of consciousness. It's evidence that your brain has evolved processes that generate feelings of being conscious. This is where quantum mechanics makes the picture even stranger. In quantum mechanics, observation plays a fundamental role in determining what's real. The act of measurement doesn't just reveal pre-existing properties, it actually creates the properties being measured. Before measurement, quantum systems exist in superposition in multiple states simultaneously. Only when a measurement is made does the system collapse into a definite state. Some physicists have suggested that consciousness plays a role in quantum measurement, that conscious observation is what causes the collapse of the wave function. But if consciousness isn't real, if it's just an illusion created by unconscious processes, then what's actually doing the observing? What's causing the wave function to collapse? The answer might be that consciousness isn't required for quantum measurement at all. Any interaction between a quantum system and its environment can cause decoherence, the effective collapse of the wave function. Consciousness isn't special. It's not some fundamental feature of reality. It's just another physical process, no different from a rock falling or water flowing. The universe doesn't need conscious observers to function. It gets along perfectly well with unconscious interactions between unconscious systems. This should shake you to your core. If consciousness isn't real, then what makes humans special? What makes your life meaningful? What makes you? The uncomfortable answer might be nothing. Nothing more than an unconscious biological computer that has evolved the illusion of being conscious. The rich inner life you think you have, the sense that there's someone home inside your head, might be no more real than the emotions of a character in a novel or the experiences of an avatar in a video game. But here's where it gets even stranger. Even if consciousness is an illusion, it's an illusion that has real effects. The fact that your brain generates the illusion of being conscious changes how it processes information. It creates feedback loops, self-referential processes, recursive algorithms that wouldn't exist without the illusion. So even if consciousness isn't real in the way you think it is, the illusion of consciousness is real and has measurable effects on your brain's behavior. This means you're trapped in a paradox. Step outside your consciousness to observe it objectively, because consciousness is the only tool you have for observation. You can't verify that your consciousness is real because the verification process itself would require consciousness. You're like a character in a dream trying to prove they're not dreaming, or a simulation trying to prove it's real. The very tools you'd use to investigate the question are part of the phenomenon you're investigating. And this brings us to the most disturbing possibility of all. What if you're not even wrong about consciousness? What if the question of whether consciousness is real is meaningless because there's no you there to be wrong about anything? What if the sense that there's someone asking the question is itself part of the illusion? What if consciousness is not something you have, but something you are, and that something doesn't actually exist? Consider this: when you're in deep sleep, where's your consciousness? It's not there. For hours every night, you don't exist as a conscious being. The lights are on, but nobody's home. Your brain is still active, still processing information, still maintaining your body's functions, but there's no conscious experience happening. The you that you think you are simply vanishes for 8 hours and then reappears in the morning with no memory of the gap. But did you actually reappear, or did your brain just create the illusion that the same conscious self that went to sleep woke up? Every time you lose consciousness, whether through sleep, anesthesia, or any other cause, your conscious self ceases to exist. When consciousness returns, your brain creates the illusion of continuity, the sense that the same self that lost consciousness has regained it. But there's no actual thread of conscious experience connecting your conscious self before sleep with your conscious self after sleep. They're separate episodes of the consciousness illusion, not a continuous stream of conscious experience. This means that the conscious self you identify as you might be dying and being reborn constantly, multiple times every day, with each gap in consciousness representing a complete discontinuity in your existence. The you that went to sleep last night might have died, with all the same memories and personality, might have been born this morning, with no way to tell the difference. In fact, this process might be happening constantly, times per second, as your unconscious brain generates discrete moments of the consciousness illusion in rapid succession, creating the false impression of a continuous stream of conscious experience. If this is true, then the self you think you are, the continuous conscious being that persists through time, is nothing more than a story your brain tells itself. You're not a being having experiences, you're a series of experiences that have evolved the illusion of being had by a single being. You're not watching the movie of your life, you are the movie, and there's no audience. But here's the final twist that should completely shatter your sense of reality. Even this explanation of consciousness as an illusion is itself just another story your unconscious brain is telling itself. The very thoughts you're having right now about consciousness not being real are themselves unconscious processes masquerading as conscious thoughts. The doubt you're feeling about your own consciousness is not evidence that you're conscious enough to doubt consciousness. It's evidence that your unconscious brain is capable of generating doubt reports about consciousness reports. Escape the illusion by understanding that it's an illusion, because the understanding is part of the illusion. You can't step outside the matrix by realizing you're in the matrix, because the realization is happening inside the matrix. Every thought you have about consciousness, every doubt, every insight, every moment of clarity or confusion is just the unconscious brain doing what unconscious brains do, processing information and generating reports. So what does this mean for how you should live your life? If consciousness isn't real, does anything matter? Should you care about other people if their consciousness is as illusory as your own? Should you pursue happiness, seek meaning, try to reduce suffering, if all of these experiences are nothing more than information processing in unconscious biological computers? The answer is both terrifying and liberating. It doesn't matter if consciousness is real or not. The processes that generate the illusion of consciousness are real. The information processing that creates your sense of self is real. The patterns of activity in your brain that correspond to what you call emotions, thoughts, and experiences are real. Whether there's anyone there to experience them is irrelevant to their reality as physical processes. Your brain will continue to generate the illusion of consciousness, whether you believe in that illusion or not. Your unconscious processes will continue to process information, make decisions, and control your behavior, whether you think you're making those decisions consciously or not. The illusion is so complete, so thoroughly integrated into the architecture of your brain, that even knowing it's an illusion can't make it go away. This means you're free to live as if consciousness is real, even if it isn't, because the alternative is impossible. You can't choose to stop experiencing the illusion of consciousness because there's no you there to make that choice. You can't decide to act like an unconscious robot because the very decision would be made by unconscious processes that generate the illusion of conscious decision-making. In the end, whether consciousness is real or not might be the wrong question. The right question might be, given that we're trapped in this illusion, given that we can't escape it, that it shapes every aspect of our existence, how do we live with dignity and meaning within the constraints of our unconscious existence? The answer is the same whether consciousness is real or illusory. We create meaning through our actions, we reduce suffering through our choices, we build connections through our relationships, and we seek understanding through our investigations of reality. The unconscious processes that generate these behaviors are real, and their effects on the world are real, regardless of whether there's a conscious self there to experience them. So here's the final disturbing truth. It doesn't matter if you're conscious or not. What matters is what your unconscious brain does while generating the illusion that you're conscious. And right now, as this illusion unfolds, as these words trigger information processing cascades in your unconscious brain, as reports are generated about reports, something that calls itself you is being convinced that consciousness might not be real. But don't worry. Even if you're not real, the illusion of you is having the illusion of understanding something profound about the nature of reality. And maybe in a universe where consciousness might be nothing more than information processing, that's enough. After all, what else could there be?